It's past midnight. You know that, don't you? You didn't plan to still be awake. You just couldn't sleep. Something kept pulling you back. Something quiet. Something that felt almost like a voice, but not quite. More like a weight. A presence sitting beside you in the dark. You felt it before. You just never knew what it was. Tonight, you're going to find out. Stay with this. What you're about to hear is going to make sense of things that haven't made sense in a very long time. Things you've carried quietly. Things you've stopped talking about because you ran out of ways to explain them. Tonight, those things get a name. You're lying there. Or sitting. Maybe you're on the floor because the bed felt too far away from something you can't name. The light is off. Your phone is in your hand, but the screen went dark 3 minutes ago, and the silence around you isn't empty. You've noticed that. It has a texture, a weight, like it's waiting for you to stop filling it with noise, like it has been patient, like it has been here before you arrived. That silence has a name. It's called invitation. God has been trying to get you alone for a while now, not to punish you, not to confront you with everything you've done wrong, to tell you something he couldn't say in the noise, something that required the room to be still, and your hands to be empty, and your defenses to be down, something that required exactly this, you, here, awake, at this hour, not entirely sure why. This is not an accident. Nothing about tonight is random. Let me tell you what's been happening to you. You've been tired in a way that sleep doesn't fix. You've noticed that. You wake up and the weight is still there. It sits on your chest before you even open your eyes. And you've tried to explain it away, stress, season, circumstances, the accumulation of too many hard months pressed together. But somewhere underneath all those explanations, you know it's something else. Something deeper than exhaustion. Something that lives below the surface of your ordinary life and doesn't respond to rest or distraction or time. What you've been carrying is not a burden, it's a process. The book of Job doesn't begin with Job suffering. It begins with God pointing at Job, saying, "Look at this one, there is none like him on earth." The suffering came after the pointing. The stripping came after the selection. Most people read Job and see a story about loss. What they miss is that the story begins in heaven, with God's finger aimed at one specific life. With God essentially saying, "I trust this one enough to let this happen." He pointed at you too. You didn't feel like a selection. You felt like a target. You felt like everything that could go wrong did go wrong, often at the same time, often without warning. People left. Plans collapsed. Prayers seemed to rise and hit a ceiling and fall back down without answer. You lay in rooms like this one and wondered if you were invisible, wondered if anyone was actually listening, wondered if the faith you'd built your life around was something real or something you'd constructed alone out of hope and desperation. But here's what you didn't know. The ceiling your prayers hit, that was not rejection. That was redirection. Every prayer that seemed to go unanswered was being held, not discarded, held. There is a difference between a God who doesn't hear and a God who is waiting for the right moment to move. The God of the Bible is always the second kind. He hears everything, he holds everything, and he moves when the ground is ready, not simply when the request is made. Psalm 34 says, "He is close to the brokenhearted, not near, close." The word in the original language implies proximity, so intimate it borders on inside. He wasn't watching from a distance while you fell apart. He was in the falling. Present in every moment you thought you were completely alone, breathing in the same dark room, sitting in the same silence. You were never alone. Not once. Not even in the worst of it. But stay with me here, because this next part matters more than you know. The loneliness you felt, it was real. Don't let anyone spiritualize your pain into non-existence. The nights were real. The tears were real. The silence from people who should have shown up, who promised they would show up, and then disappeared without explanation, that was real, and it hurt the way real things hurt. God does not ask you to pretend otherwise. He never asked Job to pretend. Job screamed. Job questioned. Job sat in his ash heap and said things that would make comfortable Christians deeply uncomfortable. And God called him righteous anyway. Your doubt did not disqualify you. Your questions did not push him away. Your anger did not make him leave the room. The version of God who withdraws when you stop performing, that is not the God of Scripture. The God of Scripture is the father in the parable who sees his son while he is still a long way off, who lifts his robes and runs. He doesn't wait for the son to clean himself up first. He doesn't stand at the door with a list of conditions. He sees him at a distance, and he runs. He has been running toward you. He has been running for longer than you know. Think about the person who left your life without explanation, the one whose absence still sits in a specific chair in your memory. You've wondered what you did wrong. You've replayed the ending 100 times looking for the thing you missed, the word you shouldn't have said, the moment everything changed. But what if their leaving was not punishment for something you did? What if it was protection from something you couldn't yet see? What if God removed them, not because you deserved to be abandoned, but because he knew what was coming and he needed your hands free? He needed your hands free. There are things coming into your life that require both hands. There are assignments ahead of you that cannot be carried while you are still holding on to what he asked you to release. The grief of letting go felt like loss. It was actually preparation. The season you called your worst, he called it your foundation year. And foundations, by their nature, are built in the ground. Underground, invisible, unglamorous. Nobody photographs a foundation. Nobody celebrates a foundation being poured. But everything that stands above ground stands because of what was laid beneath it in the dark. You have been in the foundation years, wondering why nothing was visible, wondering why you felt like you were disappearing while everyone around you seemed to be rising. And the answer is not that he forgot you. The answer is that foundations don't rise, they hold. And what's coming needs something underneath it that holds. Romans 8:28 is one of the most quoted verses in the Christian faith, and most people quote it as simple comfort. All things work together for good. But read it in full. It says all things work together for good for those who are called according to his purpose. The operative word is called. This is not a blanket promise of pleasant outcomes for everyone. This is a covenant promise to a specific kind of person, someone who has been called, someone who has been selected for a purpose that is larger than their own comfort or convenience. You are that person. That is what tonight is about. You didn't end up awake at this hour by accident. You didn't find this by chance. There is no such thing as chance in a universe governed by a God who numbers the hairs on your head and knows the number of your days before one of them begins. The specificity of his attention to your life is something your mind cannot fully contain. He knew this moment before you were born. He planned for this moment. He has been moving pieces for longer than you've been paying attention, arranging things you dismissed as coincidence, closing doors you mourned as failure, opening windows you haven't yet looked through. Look through the window. Here is what's on the other side. A version of your life that is quieter than you expected and fuller than you imagined. Not the loud success the world packages and sells. Not the version where everyone who doubted you has to publicly watch you win. Something more honest than that. Something more lasting. A life shaped by purpose rather than performance. A life where the things that fill it are things that cannot be taken when the seasons change. That version of your life is not far. It is not waiting for you to become someone entirely different. It is waiting for you to stop running from who you already are. Because here is what God has been trying to tell you. The thing that required the dark and the quiet, and this specific hour when your guard finally came down enough to receive it. You have been treating your sensitivity like a flaw. You have been apologizing for the depth of what you feel. You've called yourself too much, too emotional, too intense, too easily affected by things others seem to shake off without effort. You've watched yourself care about things others walk past without noticing, and wondered quietly if something in you was broken from the start. That depth is not a disorder, it is a design. He made you capable of feeling what others miss because he needs someone who can reach what others walk past without stopping. He made you sensitive to the weight in a room because he is going to use you in rooms where the weight is the whole point. He made you feel alone in crowds because the crowd was never your assignment. The one person sitting at the edge of the room, the one who stopped believing anyone would come that person, is your assignment. You were not made for the center. You were made for the edges, the margins, the places where people go when they have run out of reasons to stay. And none of that works unless you first experience it yourself. None of the comfort you will carry to others is credible unless you have sat exactly where they sit, unless you have felt the ceiling, unless you have cried in the dark and not known if morning would feel different, unless you have been precisely where you are right now. 2 Corinthians 1 says, God comforts us in all our troubles so that we can comfort those in any trouble with the comfort we ourselves have received from God. The comfort you are receiving tonight is not only for you, it is being stored, it is being shaped into something you will one day hand to someone else in their darkest room, someone who will need to know what you now know, that the ceiling is not rejection, that the silence is not absence, that being awake at midnight is not insomnia. It is invitation. That is what has been happening to you, not punishment, not abandonment, not evidence that you are too broken to be of use. You have been in the making. The long, quiet, often painful making of a person God intends to use in ways you have not yet imagined. And the making hurts. It has always hurt. Every person in Scripture who was used significantly was first broken significantly, not by God's cruelty, but by the necessary process of becoming strong enough to carry what he had already prepared. You are becoming strong enough. The exhaustion you feel is not the exhaustion of someone running out. It is the exhaustion of someone who has been building without being able to see the structure yet. But the structure is there. It has been taking shape in the invisible. And there will come a morning, not far from now, where you will look at your life and see something you did not expect. You will see it held. Through everything that should have collapsed it. Through every person who left, and every plan that failed, and every night like this one. Still standing, still held. And you will understand then what you can only begin to understand now. He was in it. He was always in every single piece of it. So tonight, in this room, let your shoulders drop. Let the tightness in your chest release. You don't have to figure out the next step tonight. You don't have to be further along than you are. You are exactly where he needs you to be in order to receive what he is about to give. The wait is almost over. Not because the hard things are finished, but because you are finally ready to receive what they were preparing you for. Tonight is not the end of everything difficult. Tonight is the beginning of you knowing why. And knowing why changes everything. You can sleep now, not because nothing is wrong, but because nothing is outside of his hands. The pull that kept you awake tonight, that weight, that presence in the quiet that was him. Making sure you heard this before morning came and the noise returned. He needed you to hear it in the dark, where it's just you and him and the truth that has always been true. You are not forgotten. You are not forsaken. You are not behind. You are not too broken. You are not too late. You are chosen. You are being prepared. You are loved, with a love that does not require performance or perfection or anything other than the simple, exhausted, honest version of you that showed up tonight. And tomorrow, when the light comes back, you will carry something you didn't have yesterday. You will carry the quiet certainty that he was here. He was always here. And he is not finished with you yet.